All right. We are officially live. This is the Patriot Nation podcast, episode 48, the first live episode. I am Pat Lane. With me is Ryan Spagnoli, as always. And joining us as well today is Taylor Kyles. We got a full house today. So thanks for tuning in. If you're tuning in, we really appreciate it. And we're excited to kind of do this live show here. It should be fun.
Yeah, Taylor, it hasn't been since the Super Bowl we came in. You had to break down a lot of X's and O's, so we haven't talked to you in a while. So happy to have you back.
I'm happy to be back, man. I missed you guys. Let's get into it. Let's talk some ball.
I know. Wow. So things have changed. Obviously, we were like, oh, we'll talk, a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and now, of course, the Josh Gordon news comes out today. The Gordon news is the number one story. Obviously, they put him on IR, and now it looks like, or at least from what Rappaport is saying, he's going to be cut as soon as he's healthy. So obviously, surprising news came a little bit out of left field. I guess for people that didn't love the Mohamed Sanu trade, it makes a little bit more sense. They gave up a second-round pick because they knew they were going to be losing Gordon. I guess maybe, and Brian Phillips mentioned this from the pulpit, that, he wouldn't pass a physical, which is why they couldn't trade him. But, it's an unfortunate end to, a stint that was fairly productive here, but also, like, everyone was just rooting for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll always be a fan of Josh Gordon and what he did here. I think Alex Barth had said it. If you had told me back a year and a half ago when they made this trade, for a guy who hadn't really played in 5 years, was kind of in and out, if you were going to get, just about 1,000 yards, 67 receptions, whatever he did, and the time he put in here, you would have said that's a win. I mean, you got a Super Bowl title out of it. He necessarily didn't help you down the stretch, but he helped big time last year, kind of put them in the position to succeed.
Absolutely. And then if you even look this year, like, I think it's easy to say that his consistency wasn't really there the way we expected it to be. Had some drops. He wasn't really making 4 or 5 catches every game, but he was still, I put up a video on my Twitter, he was still making big plays that you're not going to really expect anybody else on the roster to make. So he definitely had an impact. But with someone like Gordon, I think the first thing you got to think about is him as a human being and everything that he's obviously gone through. And I think the reason that so many of us in, Pat's Nation rallied behind him was because he seems like a really sincerely good guy who, just had an upbringing that a lot of us don't understand. So there was definitely some sympathy there. And I just really, bottom of my heart, hope that he lands somewhere where they're going to give him some care. Because, there was some piece that he did where he was, I think it was a Bleacher Report, where he was talking about the way that Cleveland, kind of just used him going to rehab and all those things as a publicity stunt, really just trying to make it look like they were taking care of him when really they were just sending him there as a little vacation. So wherever he goes, and I think that was one thing I actually tweeted at the worst possible time, that I didn't think that he was I thought he was going to be with New England next year. And literally as I was doing that, the news came out that he was being waived. So I think the Patriots did a lot to try to help him personally and make sure that he was in a good position. I hope wherever he goes that they continue to do the same thing.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And like you said, I mean, that's the biggest thing. And at this point now, some of the hard part is that he could go anywhere, right? If the Patriots cut him, after next week, waivers are take effect. And so he'll go into waivers, and anyone can claim him off of waivers. And it could be anyone. It could be Miami. It could be, that's, man, like the two places for me that I have is like Miami, number one, because they're just a cluster down there, and you got South Beach and everything else. And then number 2 is Oakland, because they are an absolute dumpster fire. They have no organizational, backbone at all. And then you're talking about going to Vegas next year. Like that's the worst possible place for him to go. And I think second is Miami. And so it's funny, for him, I think it's a little bit more. And like you said, Taylor, like we're looking at as from the football angle, obviously, but for us, we've invested in him as a person as well. So we're really concerned about him moving forward. And so Spags, just I'll let you kind of talk too, because we both kind of talked about it. But where are the places other than Miami and Oakland? Is there any other place you're like cross it off the map? Like, please God, don't end up there.
I mean, not off the top of my head, for a place I guess I could spin it that I want him to go. I guess you could say somewhere like Detroit with Matt Patricia. I know he didn't get a chance to know him, but I know that he kind of brings that Patriots culture there with him. Honestly, just a contender. Really, as much as it hurts me to say that, maybe not necessarily in the AFC, but somewhere, maybe a Green Bay, somewhere like that where it's going to be all football. It's going to keep him focused on a goal at hand. You don't want him going somewhere where he's kind of going to rot away and they're kind of building for next year and future years, because you're going to see, maybe not as bad as Cleveland, but something like that could potentially happen.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It really is.
And I think especially with Flores in Miami, he's got experience with Josh Gordon. I think that he understands the climate of their organization right now. I really am not sure that Brian Flores would say, yeah, we need to bring this guy in, because I think he knows, like you said, Spags was perfect. He needs some kind of direction. He needs some incentive that he can work every week for. I'm sure he's like, to a degree, is a very self-motivated guy. I'm not saying that he needs football, to keep himself on the straight and narrow. If anything, people were saying that sometimes it could be a distraction, which, we want to avoid. But I feel like Brian Flores would kind of be the voice of reason to say, we really can't bring him in here. This is not the kind of situation that would be the best for him. So yeah, somewhere like a contender, I think would be the best landing spot. So he's got something to really reach onto and say, okay, and not only that, but, somewhere with some organizational structure where, they're going to be able to give him the resources to be the best person he can be, best person foremost in that best.
Right.
Person.
And at the end of the day, we got everything we wanted out of him, really. I mean, he changed here. We helped him. I mean, when obviously he's hurting now, but when it's all said and done, I'm sure he'll look back on this and, be so thankful for the opportunity to be able to come here, play with Tom Brady. And like I said, give him a better direction of life. Like last year, even when kind of, we don't really know what happened, but they were checking in on him and did a lot of things to help him. And I'm sure at the end of the day, like I said, he'll be super thankful for that.
Yeah. No, someone in the comment section said the Niners, and I think that would be a really good spot for him. I think San Francisco, you got, Jimmy G, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of positive things going on over there. So I like that idea a lot as well. And someone else said that they hope, that the Patriots will actually re-sign Gordon. Now, I think, I don't know what you think, and Taylor, I'll let you speak to it, but I assume, and like you said, no, they invested a lot of time into him. They gave him a lot of structure and everything else like that. But I got to imagine after you do something like this, that it's probably his time here, I would imagine, is over for good.
Yeah, I think so too. And like we talked about before before we went on air, the Instagram comment on the NFL, that's not a great look. I think they said, the Patriots put Josh Gordon knee on IR, and he, commented interesting with one of those emojis, kind of with the magnifying glass. So I'm sure it probably didn't go over too well. But like I said, we wish him the best, and hopefully he can get back on the field soon and do his thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, if we're talking about this year, maybe next year, you never know what the future holds. But this year, I think that this is the end of the road for him. If anything, I think Evan Lazar pointed out that at this point, Sanu is the better option over Josh Gordon. And, when I found out about it, honestly, I was kind of in shock. I was having trouble kind of wrapping my head around everything and really putting it in perspective immediately because, it was just disappointing to know that someone that we invested so much time in, and, no regrets for that. Absolutely. Like, I'm still invested in him and his progress, and I want to, continue to see him do well. But that kind of sucked. But I think Evan's absolutely right, because I guess the expectation personally for me was that at some point Gordon would get healthy. We wouldn't see the version of him that I think we were expecting even last year. That crazy explosive guy that ripped off the huge touchdown against Aqib Talib in 2013, I believe it was. I don't think we were ever going to get that, but still, he had the option to get in that big physical guy who could still make the big plays consistently. And I think that consistency is the problem that we were seeing, where he couldn't really do that. I think Mohamed Sanu, he's a durable guy. He's someone that Matt Ryan could consistently go to in big spots. When I was doing my film review of him, there were multiple times on 3rd down and 4th down where he was making contested catches, where he was, finding places in the zone and just getting open and making sure that he was giving Matt Ryan a solid target with, his already huge size. So I think that right now Sanu could end up being kind of a Brandon LaFell situation, where we see him go from a guy who's usually in the slot, that big slot type, to outside, because he still has the physical tools to win out there, even if it's not something you see a lot from him on tape. In 2 receiver sets, he's on the outside, but when the Falcons went to their 3, he was inside. So I think they upgraded, so I don't really think we're going to see Josh Gordon come back. But again, I hope he, finds a good situation for himself, and I hope the Patriots can keep it chugging.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I love what you said there, and you posted that on Twitter earlier. That LaFell comp, and I thought it was perfect, because that's exactly what they're looking for. That's exactly what they need. They need a guy like that can come in and produce. And again, like you said, outside, inside, wherever it might be, you need that guy, and he's got the smarts to do it. He's got the body to do it. So, I'm excited to see Sanu. Obviously, the Patriots believe in him. And so let's kind of I think we'll just kind of keep this transition going. Spags, when you look at a guy like Sanu, now, unfortunately, you go from, and I tweeted this out earlier, you go from week 2, Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry coming back off of IR, to now Edelman, Sanu, Jacoby Myers, and Gunnar Olszewski, I guess. So it's like, So, whoa, like you take a big, obviously it's a big step back from week 2, but Brown's been gone for a while. Sanu's going to probably be their number 2 target at this point, and I've liked what I've seen from Myers so far. Spags, where do you think Sanu fits in, and how do you think, that's going to work here?
Yeah, I mean, Taylor, you're more of the X's and O's guy, but we talked about it for weeks when we trade chips and who the Patriots would go after. We were kind of set on, we knew they were going to go a receiver. You knew they were going to try and go out and do that. And I had said I wanted Sanu. You've known that they've receiver since the like Maurice, right? Like guys like that, they wanted to go bigger, and that thought Sanu was more attractive. And the Rutgers, and like he talked about, Bill had been close to him. They go way back, like he said. I think he fits the mold for our receiving. Like we said, outside, can play anywhere. I think he's going to a lot of people because he kind of got overshadowed because of Julio Jones, and then obviously the emergence of Calvin Ridley the last couple of years. Sanu is kind of like their 3, I guess. But, I mean, on a lot of rosters, he can too even play some number 1. I think he's got a legit set, and he's going to help them wherever he plays.
Right. Yeah, I think that the way we're going to see him used is primarily, I think he's going to be the X. I think it's the reference I think I've used is maybe 2016 when you had Hogan and you had Malcolm Mitchell, who was a rookie who started performing well. And I think, N'Keal Harry's a completely different situation. Bill says that mentally he thinks that Harry's going to be able to come in and contribute, but you never really know until they're on the field. So we still have to see that. But in 2016, we usually saw, even when Malcolm Mitchell started coming on and playing more snaps, it was more of a rotation where sometimes when Mitchell would be on the field, then Hogan would kick down to the Z. So just to break it down really quickly. So the X receiver is typically the receiver who's on the line away from the tight end. So they're on the ball, which means usually they have to be more physical, bigger guys who can handle press man coverage because you can't move them off the ball. So if the cornerback wants to come up and play physical, there's really nowhere for you to hide. Now, we've seen Dorsett in that role at times. They sprinkle him in at the X, but I don't think that's a role that they really like him, and they like him at the Z, which is where Edelman plays sometimes as well. That's that off-the-ball position where you can put them in motion. Usually, if Edelman's at the Z, he's the one who's doing a lot of the motioning, and then Dorsett will go to the Z outside, and then Edelman will come in the slot just to not to get too carried away. But I think Sanu has that physicality and that skill set where he can really thrive on the outside, doesn't necessarily need to be in the slot. And I think N'Keal Harry and Sanu are the best options to be out there. And I don't think they're going to rely on N'Keal Harry to be the guy who comes in and is consistently the main X. I think, if anything, they're going to switch back and forth with Sanu getting the lion's share of the reps because he's got the NFL experience. He's got that savvy, and he's going to be able to acclimate himself faster. Even though N'Keal Harry's been in the system longer, he still hasn't played against any NFL defenses.
Right.
You have to make those side adjustments. There's a lot of parts of the Patriots system where a lot of it is post-snap. So what's happening when the ball snapped? Is the defense changing their coverage? Are you going to be able to, in that split second, change what you're doing? A lot of that mental processing. So we're going to see how fast N'Keal Harry can adjust and how flexible they can be with those guys. I think Sanu, they're going to have that versatility pretty early on. But I'd see Sanu as the primary outside receiver.
Yeah. No, and I'll tell you, Taylor, the thing for me is that you saw it a little bit from Jacoby Myers on Monday night, when I think it was like a 3rd and 9 plays pretty early in the game, and he ran across the middle and sat down right in the middle of that zone. You get the 2 linebackers outside, and you get the safety behind him, and he sat down right at the first down marker, and boom, Brady hit him for a first down. And you posted a video very similar to that of Sanu where, Sanu's running across the field. He sees, one linebacker drop, so he knows that he can get in front of him, and he sees the other linebacker coming towards him, so he stops where he is so Ryan can hit him for like a 6-7 yard gain. And it's just things like that you're going to have to see. And Myers, I don't know if he makes that play in week 1, but now it's week 7, and so he can make those plays. But it's just about really kind of understanding what you're looking at. And you're right, N'Keal Harry, although he has an understanding of the system because he's been here longer, he hasn't actually been on the field to really understand that and see that. And so I think that that's important. Now, it might come over time. He may be, a very fast learner, may get it right away. But, it's going to take a week or two at least for him to get up to speed. Yeah.
And what did Malcolm Mitchell rookie here? 40-something. My at 30 now, I believe. Going to get 40 to 43. Probably not. Maybe a little bit lower than that. I mean, if, he's obviously going to see an uptick in targets now. His role just got a little bit bigger. He's ready for that. He's shown that he can beat any coverage, especially I tweeted out today that Brady went to him on 2 crucial 3rd downs in that opening drive. He made the play. Yep. I think you can kind of see an uptick in targets for him. He's gone up the last 3 weeks. Anywhere between 30 to 35 catches for Myers is what you're asking for. And I think if we had this conversation week 1, we would have been like, no way, because of the people they had. But it just shows the trust that they have in their young guys. And I'm happy to see that too, because they were old. I mean, we talked about it last week, Pat, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Patriots are getting on the older side of things. And they were, Edelman's 31. He's not getting any younger in his body too. I mean, he takes a lot of hits. Gordon hasn't played a lot. Obviously I'm glad having guys like Myers and guys the snap.
Yeah, and I think with that age, I think that they've still got a good inflection of youth. Now, and so when I say Gunner, I'm not sure what his role as a receiver is necessarily going to be in the future. I see him really as a special teams guy, and then it's kind of a wait-and-see kind of situation like we had with Edelman early on in his career. But N'Keal Harry and Jacoby Myers, now you got an outside receiver and an inside receiver that I think can be with the team and contribute for a long time. Obviously we haven't seen anything from N'Keal Harry, so I want to pump the brakes a little bit, as excited as I am to see him produce. But just what we saw in the preseason, even the first 2 targets he catches them in dominant fashion. That one back shoulder, and the other where he just snatch it out of the air. Like that's exactly what you expected to see from him. So, and with his work ethic, his intelligence, the fact that Belichick openly said, we all know, Belichick will fluff up another team, but when it comes to his players, sometimes he sounds like a broken record, but he doesn't lie. If a guy is struggling, he's going to avoid the question. If a guy is doing well, he's going to give him his praise, which is one thing I love about Belichick. And he said that he thinks N'Keal Harry is ready mentally. That's huge praise, I think, for someone who hasn't even played a single NFL snap in the regular season, only one preseason game. So in terms of that, that youth movement, I think they've got those good veterans. You got Dorsett, who's not as old as the older guys. Sanu's 30, Edelman's 31, but you've got, the veteran base, which I think is important. And then you got young guys who it's like, hey, come in, you contribute, you get more opportunities. If you don't, we'll just go to some of the other veterans. There's a lot of options on this team right now. It's super exciting. So I think they've got just enough youth to be excited about for the future, and have some level of they're not going in to the next couple of years, but like we need a receiver, we need to pump some youth in the group. But it's a nice mix, and I think that's what the Patriots have on both sides of the ball, which is really nice. Enough veteran presence that that they have consistency and reliability, and then some young guys to get you really excited as well.
Yeah.
It's crazy how football changes too. Remember week 2? Like we had Brown, Dorsett, Gordon.
It seems like forever ago.
And now we have it's like 3 years later, a whole new receiving corps.
Yep, it's crazy. So
I'll open this up. I guess going to another little. We can go on a little discussion. Do you think they're done yet? Because I have a little interesting take. Do you think they're done going out, maybe getting a receiver, a tight end? I mean, Michael Bennett's kind of like that outside. The whole defense is out there having fun, and he's not happy. So it's like,
you saw that too, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's like the other kid that when everyone's having fun, he's kind of off to the side, all pouty and selfish a little bit. So I think that's another block to fall. Are they going to move him? That's another discussion. But I don't think the Pats are done.
Well, personally, they need more money. They're already, I'm not sure what the cap is right now. I know I think that, Josh Gordon actually, I think I saw a tweet that said they were going to get $2 million off the cap because he was cut, but there was some technicality. I'm not a cap guy. But I don't think they're going to get the money from Gordon. Yeah. And right now I think they're sitting at around $3 million or something. No, not even. They had $3 million before the trade. And then Sanu came in. They're going to have to maneuver around that, make money to pay him as well. So I'd love to see them go after someone. I know Scott Pioli mentioned, he didn't say the Patriots were looking at Austin Hooper, but he said that Austin Hooper would be an interesting guy for the Patriots to go after. But also mentioned that they just don't have the money to get anybody that I think would really want, who would be a kind of name that would excite us. I've been just plugging for a blocking tight end, like someone that can come in and consistently can get the job done in the trenches, like a Dwayne Allen. I have a feeling he's still not healthy, so I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. I used to think it was more about money, but then, as long as he's been out, I'm starting to think it really is more just his health. Yeah. But as much as I'd like to see them go after one more guy, as a fan and as someone who just wants to see some more stability and less of a rotation at the tight end position, that's a luxury. Most teams don't have great depth at tight end either, so it's hard to really complain about when they've got it in so many other places.
We've been so lucky for so long with Coates. I mean, even Hernandez here a little bit, and then Gronkowski. Like this is what teams go through all the time. We're kind of getting,
and even blocking tight ends.
I know.
We've had Human, we've had Dwayne Allen, Mike Williams, guys that no one really talks about. But because there was Gronkowski, it was like, okay, the number 2 guy's a good blocker. We know that already. But I think we took for granted the fact that Gronk obviously led the ship, and those guys were maybe more in contributing roles, but they still did the job. And this is the first season where I'm really seeing the Patriots put tight ends on the field that aren't winning at the point of attack, they're usually trying to run to make sure that the tight ends aren't really going to be right there where the run needs to get at, because defenders usually can do a really good job stacking and shedding where they get their hands in their chest. They extend to make sure that they have enough space to get off if they need to, and they're getting off the blocks of these tight ends really easily because they're not the biggest guys. Tomlinson came in, he was about 265, although he's not the best blocker for his size. He was still good and he was still capable. He's cut, so now we're back to having a bunch of 250-ish pound tight ends. So,
right.
If anything, I just like to see them get an under the radar guy who's going to be able to get in the trenches and move some people. But
the moves, the moves question is interesting because they cut Josh Gordon. Well, they put Josh Gordon on IR, so now they have a spot, right? So they have, and so the real question for me is like, okay, if you have a spot, what are you going to do with it?
Bring back Jordan Richards.
Hey, you never know. Coach Richards, man.
That's what he'll do.
I tweeted this out. Like, no one in history has ever been more maligned for like a coaching error. Like, there is no way he should have ever been on the field in Super Bowl 52 or Super Bowl 52, right? There's no way. He should have never been there.
Round DB, another one.
I stopped ragging on him a while ago because I'm like, at first it was like kind of not. I don't want to say fun. That sounds sadistic, but it's just like you play around. It's just like the fan base. You just kick around a little bit. But it's kind of sad now because he's done nothing wrong. By all accounts, he seems like a fantastic human being. He's really nice locker room presence. He always does what he's told. Good special team. Good special team. Like he's not bad or anything. It's just the draft. Where they drafted him. Obviously, he gets the flag for that, which is completely unfair. So I had to cut off like the Jordan Richards bashing because I just started feeling bad. I was like, this is a good dude. First I was just joking, but this has been like 4 or 5 years. They just
it's the same way, yeah. No, and so we'll see. I mean, who knows? But they definitely have a spot. So we'll see what they do. What they decide to do with that spot, whether they make a trade or not. I'd love to see them make a move, but again, like you said, Taylor, and Spags, I think you mentioned too. Like they don't have any money, so I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they extend someone, maybe they don't. I have no idea. Maybe they say, okay, Michael Bennett's not happy. Let's ship him out. And so, I don't know. I mean, it really, it changes things, and so, they don't have any fullbacks. The fullbacks are gone. So now, did they go and get a
now? Ferenc.
Oh yeah, James Ferenc. You never know. Center slash fullback.
Tomlinson's gone now, and we just got a comment too on the side about this changes the fullbacks come back. I don't know if Devlin's
there's no fullbacks. No, there's no fullbacks coming back. No, this is it.
Devlin's gone, unfortunately.
You got to bring Wynn back because Marcus.
No, Wynn is a definite, and Harry at this point is a definite too, unless you're going to get someone that you think can replace him. But to me, he's the first round pick. He's playing this year. Like he's going to have to, So, go ahead, Taylor.
And then going back to fullback, I think I'm not sure how much they're actually planning on using Landon Roberts. I'm not sure if it's exclusively a goal line role, but honestly, he had a couple plays where he didn't look bad. Now, I'm not saying you can
on the third touchdown, he was the lead blocker. He blew somebody up. Michelle
bounced
outside. Mm-hmm. Was it the third one, I think? Was it?
Yeah, I think it was the third one.
The second one, he popped Jamal Adams in the hole. Jamal Adams. And then the second one, Jamal tried to go under him, and Roberts kind of went over him, got Cashman. So we basically got two guys at once. And you saw, I was looking at his feet because when you think about it, in the goal line, it's so tight. And there's so many bodies around. It's really easy to just, the first time that Roberts was in at fullback, he just ran right into Marcus Cannon. So you saw he started a little hot. And it's not easy because you got to navigate through traffic. You got to make sure that you're actually creating a lane and somewhere for your running back to follow you through. And that was something I thought he did fairly well. Again, it was 2 snaps that he actually got the job done. So I'm not going to say that, you're going to start seeing him outside and all that stuff.
He's going to come in eligible and catch a pass. In the Super Bowl,
Roberts gets the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. Michael Phelps' head will
on that. I'll throw $10 on it now.
We've seen him try to catch interceptions, so I'm not sure that's the best idea. He dropped 2 or 3 the past couple of years. Landon Roberts has dropped a couple interceptions.
Yeah, he is really bad.
So I'm not. He's gonna have to show that one in practice if they're gonna give him that chance.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So, we'll see. I mean, someone too just mentioned Brandon Bolden. I mean, Bolden, I think, is an interesting case because he's been great. And they've been throwing the ball to him out of the backfield. Right. And so, Rex will come back, obviously. And so maybe he won't have as much of a role. But he's the type of guy that, every few weeks, a few times a year, he'd break off a long touchdown run or he'd break off a 30-yard run or something like that. And so he's done it consistently in the past. And I think that, you saw it. You've seen it just more consistently from him because they've been playing him more at running back. And Sony Michel's another one. You mentioned Jordan Richards with the, where they drafted him. And unfortunately, I think Sony Michel's fine. He's a good running back. He's not great. He's not sensational. He's not a franchise running back, right? But he's pretty good. But he was drafted in the first round. So everyone expects him to be this superstar, all pro running back. And that's not what he is. And I think, and I don't know, but I think that the Patriots knew that he wasn't that when they brought him in. They said, he's not this sensational, Christian McCaffrey running back, Ezekiel Elliott, but he gets what's there,
don't need one of
and he
those
doesn't
guys.
fumble the ball,
really,
right?
They,
And
they
so
really don't. That's not their system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's fine. He's a one-cut guy. He's doing everything they ask for him. Yeah,
right.
his decision making's a little and I think the instability of the line and not having the two tight ends like Allen and Gronk that they had last year and Andrews and Brown, they made life really easy for him. He was running through some holes last year, especially in the playoffs, that you could have drove a truck through.
Yeah.
And I think this year it's kind of testing his intelligence as a runner and all that. So that's a little bit where he's struggling. But yeah, like you said, he's fine. You see the first round pick and see that he's drafted, one or two picks before Nick Chubb, and everyone has oh my God, but it's just two different systems.
Right.
And I think part of it was his character, because he was a captain at Georgia. He's a super mature guy. We could see that as soon as he came in the locker room. He fit right in, just the answers he was giving in press where he was being interviewed by reporters. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And think about it. Jordan Richards was drafted in the second round, was known in the scouting community and people who recognized him when he was picked as a guy who was very smart, was a coach on the field, but his athletic limitations were significant. And you don't really go for guys with athletic limitations in the second round unless you're the Patriots, because the guy shows something that you're like, if we put him in the locker room, he's going to fit right in. And, maybe he's not going to be a superstar, but he's going to be in the locker room for at least 4 or 5 years, and he's going to be a guy that's going to motivate everybody else. And I think that's got – who are we to question that, considering the consistency that they've had and all the locker room stability and all the leaders that we've seen come out of there, go to other teams, and then other teams are like, yeah, he's just a guy, comes in, gets his work done, he's a good leader. So, all those factors I think played into Sony being drafted, and the unfair, flack that he gets a lot of the time for not being Todd Gurley or any of these other guys who can just make guys miss in the hole. That's not him. A lot of time he needs a little bit of head of steam to pop guys, because we see him when he gets to the open field, he looks like the kind of running back that I think Patriots fans want him to be. Right. But before he gets that, he doesn't have that burst where he can kind of stop for a second like Bell or McCaffrey and just pop into a gap 2 gaps away and take off. That's not who he is. But I think he's what the Patriots expect him to be, and maybe just on the outside, the perception wasn't quite what it was supposed to be for his expectations.
No, I agree. And listen, we're going to transition to the defense. Before we do, you mentioned Jordan Richards. His nickname at Stanford in college was Coach. Everyone called him Coach Richards, and it was just great. I just love that. So I've called him Coach Richards my whole, since he's been here. And then I was kind of like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll stop doing that after he. So, but anyways, let's get into the defense.
He's lucky he's not still here too, because he would have taken the load off Richards.
That guy, dude.
Bethel, though, we got Bethel. That's a pretty nice pickup. I love that,
man.
By the way.
Dude,
Matt Slater's geek too.
No one's going to return a punt ever. Oh. No one's. They're going to be fighting to down the ball at the end. They're going to be like, no, this time I got it. They're going to be racing each other. Forget about attack on the guy. They're just going to be racing each other down there. So let's get into the defense. This defense, historically, I mean, the numbers are insane. 175-point differential right now for the Patriots is just out of this world, astronomical. I think the craziest stat I've ever heard, as a matter of fact, my cousin Artie sent it to me, and he got it actually from I believe it was from Reddit. But I didn't fact check it, but I'll believe it. So it says they said while the Patriots offense has been on the bench, the Patriots have a point differential of +10, removing every single one of their offensive drives from every single game. The Patriots would be 3-3-1, tied for the second wild card spot in the AFC, and better than 15 teams in the NFL. That's without any offensive drives. Literally zero offensive drives. Their defense, and I know they've played nobody, and I know the offenses have sucked, and the offensive lines have been terrible, and the quarterbacks and everything else, but it doesn't matter. It's unbelievable. And the Jets had a great week against the Cowboys. Donald looked awesome. The Cowboys supposedly are good. They curb stomped the Eagles this week. So you look at the Cowboys, it's a pretty good team. And the Jets, they only won by 2, but they handled themselves in that game pretty well. And they come against the Patriots, and they look like the worst team in football. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. And Taylor, I'm just I want to go to you first because you're more the X and O's guys. what the heck are they doing? What are they doing that
Zero blitz,
makes it so
baby.
dominant?
Dude, seriously. I mean, they're just getting
every receiving core. Go ahead.
There's so much multiplicity and so much disguise, and the biggest thing is, I think this defense is so unique because, and I know everyone thinks, when I was in work today, people were saying, "Oh, we haven't seen them play anybody." This is a unit that's better than it was last year, doing a lot of the same things, right, where a lot of their zero blitzers, like we were talking about this during the playoff run. It wasn't talked about as much during the regular season, but they started pulling this out against Minnesota. This isn't new. They've been doing this for a long time, not quite as aggressive, but I think even going into the playoffs, they started to really ramp up the aggressiveness where you were seeing these looks where they'd have the sim pressures or simulated pressures where you got the guys coming up to the line of scrimmage. You get 6, 7 guys. And basically what the idea is what they're doing with these zero blitz looks. And zero blitz means there's no safety. So usually cover 2, cover 3, it indicates how many deep safeties or deep coverage players there are. But in cover 0, there's no one deep. So what happens is usually an offense will have 5 offensive linemen, sometimes a tight end attached, and then maybe a running back in the backfield. So the most you're going to have is 7 guys to protect. If the defense is sending as many guys as you have to protect plus 1, so maybe you got all those guys in protection, they send 1 more guy or they send as many, you have to get the ball out of your hands quickly because someone's going to be unaccounted for most likely because rarely the teams have all their guys, or like it's called max protection. So rarely do they have the tight end and the running back both block on a consistent basis. But against this team, sometimes that's what you got to do. And what happened against Darnold was, and you actually saw when Belichick and Hightower mentioned that they had the freedom based on the offensive look to change the play and bring pressure, what I noticed was anytime Sam Darnold went to an empty formation, Hightower would pull Deron Harmon from the middle of the field, tell him to come down in the box, and they would create a 7-man front against what the Jets only had 6. So typically, when you're in an empty set, a lot of the plays that are in that formation are quick plays because if an offense, you only have 5 blockers most of the time. An offense sends 1 more guy, it's quick pressure. You don't really have as much help around you. With Griffin in, they knew that he was going to be there to block because if you're empty and a tight end's attached to the formation, he's probably going to at least chip or do something to help out, give the quarterback more time. So by bringing up 7 guys when they only had 6 to protect, Darnold knew, okay, I got to get the ball out of my hand fast. Now, in the first time they did that in the empty look, that was Devin McCourty's interception because they actually did send 7, and they got 2 free rushers because Hightower came in free, and then Jamie Collins was outside of Chase Winovich pre-snap and then bumped inside, and it confused the protection, so nobody accounted for him. Darnold threw it hot, and the receiver hadn't even turned around. McCourty literally was just standing there watching Darnold, seeing when he was going to throw it, and picked it off. And that happened the second time was the strip sack with John Simon. And because they did it once and they got it, and Darnold said that they were going to send this pressure, it happened then. That's why he said he started seeing ghosts. And a big part of that is you have to have guys that can win their one-on-one battles because if you have all those guys in protection, then usually it means it's going to be a man pass protection. So every lineman has one specific person. But the Patriots have guys that can win one-on-one matchups. You got Jamie Collins who can just use his athleticism to get around linemen who are kind of bigger guys, so they may overcommit if he starts one way and he'll go right around them. You got Hightower, you got Van Noy, you got Winovich, Butler, all these guys that can win individually. So even when they're not sending so much pressure that you have to get it out, they're still going to get in your face and, get quarterbacks rattled. So on the strip sack, actually, John Simon came free because the protection wasn't accounting for him, but the Patriots weren't even sending everyone that they were threatening. Right. And he came right in, put the hand up to make sure that Darnold couldn't dump it off the way he'd want to, but didn't leave his feet, which was a huge key because he wouldn't have probably gotten that sack if he jumped up, but he put his hand up really quickly, kept going for Darnold, got him wrapped up and stripped it out. So, I just went into a whole tangent about that. But basically what they're doing is they're showing a lot of things. They're moving guys around. Sometimes they're amoeba package. Sometimes when it's, the safety starting in the box and then going all the way deep, we see that a lot, which is something that, especially young quarterbacks, you're not used to seeing a guy start 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, then book it and end up 20 yards downfield. You know what I mean? So those are just little things that they're doing that it's a lot to process as a quarterback when you only got like 20 seconds to read the defense a lot of the time. So I'm going to let somebody else talk. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, and one thing, a little bit about that too, and I think Phil Perry noted it because obviously he had the view from up top, but he said Harmon and McCourty were kind of seesawing. One guy would come in, the other one would go back, and they were just, and he said you could tell Darnold was just so confused. He was checking like this, like looking all over the place. He had no idea what he was doing all night long. And the other thing is too, they're just straight they just disrespected the Jets receivers.
100%.
Just like bringing zero blitz. What was it, like 12 times or something like that? Like that just shows no respect for your receivers. Like we're gonna bring everybody and try to beat us one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I actually mentioned pregame. I'm sorry.
No, go.
Just really quickly, leading up to the game, I actually mentioned that what I was expecting, and this is what they did last year, was on base downs, they would just go with on early downs, they go with their base personnel. So, just a pretty vanilla front where it was usually like 5 guys in line of scrimmage using their 3-4 just to make sure that they could take away the run first and have Darnold, just have to beat them himself. And then when they got into passing situations, it was the same thing. They would show the pressure looks and they'd have straight man coverage because we've seen it time and time again, especially since Gilmore got here. They do not respect the Jets receivers. They don't fear them at all because they know they've got the talent, and they know that with all the talent they have with the pass rush, that it's a lot to think about. And even if you do, make the right read, chances are the Patriots DBs and linebackers and everything are going to be able to make a play against the receivers. So, this is something that we've actually seen. Darnold just was a lot worse this year, I think, because they did a little bit more in terms of their disguise than they did last time.
Yeah. Well, I think too, and that's someone just on the comment thing, asked if you can only really play cover zero against less experienced quarterbacks. And I think while that's not necessarily the case,
they ruined Jared Goff doing it.
They did. And the thing is too, is that right. And you got to understand too, like the big thing with the Patriots is that they're probably the best man coverage team in the league. I mean, you talk about Stephon Gilmore, who's a phenomenal man-to-man coverage guy. J.C. Jackson's a great man-to-man coverage guy. Jason McCourty, Jonathan Jones, all these guys can man cover. And then you have the linebackers that are explosive into the, rushing the passer like Collins and Hightower and those guys. But then you also mix it up so you don't know what's coming. Obviously, the danger with running cover zero is that if the cornerback misses the tackle, it's a touchdown or it's a long play because, everyone's singled up man-to-man and the other people that aren't singled up man-to-man are rushing the quarterback. So if you run a quick slant and break it, see you later, you're going to the house. And so that's obviously the danger of running that play, but the Patriots don't have to worry about that as much because they have so much faith in their linebackers and their cornerbacks. And what they also do, similar to that John Simon play where it looks like they bring in everyone, and all of a sudden 3 guys jumping in the middle. You throw a quick slant right there, and it's picked off, and it's going to the house the other direction. So that's the other stuff that you got to be thinking about is that the Patriots, not only are they doing those things, but they're mixing up what they're doing, and they have the personnel to do it. You talk about Gilmore, who's probably the best cornerback in the league, and Hightower, who in my opinion is one of the best linebackers in the league, and Collins is playing out of his mind right now.
So smart, just so smart, and experienced too. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
And I was kind of on the train too of like they're gonna fall off at some point, right? They're gonna play Mahomes, and they're gonna start playing these good quarterbacks. Even like you thought Mayfield at the beginning of the year, but he's in for one this weekend too. But I'm really convinced that this defense, they're never gonna get let up. Like maybe give up 250 yards one game, which the Patriots will win that game, no problem. Right. By 2 scores.
The first game they give up a couple of touchdowns, people are going to be losing their minds. I told you, this defense isn't what you thought. Just it's going to happen eventually. Defenses give up points. This is just insane. And like you guys said, the experience and then the experience together. Collins is one of the new guys, but he's been with most of the team for a long time. He understands the system, even though they do different things than what they did when he was here, especially with their pressure packages. But you see with the line stunts, it looks easy, but we see all the time. Like if you look at other opponents, you see guys running into each other a lot because these aren't easy things to execute. It takes timing. It takes an understanding of the Vikings are also really good at it. It's an understanding of, what you can do to free up somebody else. It's being unselfish. It's opening up opportunities for other people. And then the secondary, they can communicate and they know what each person's leverage is, what they're doing, where the weaknesses are. And then again, going back to why it's so hard and these zero coverages aren't as easy as you think is because they don't just blitz all the time. I know simulated pressures, I feel like were talked about more last year, and now it's more just the blitz looks, but a lot of it is simulated pressure where sometimes it'll be cover 1, sometimes it's cover 2, where both safeties will kind of start in the box, but you see that they're kind of like you were saying with the seesaw where they kind of go back and forth, and then at the snap, they both go towards the sidelines, so you don't really know what you're getting all the time. Usually it is man coverage, which is an easier indicator, but you don't know where the strength of the defense is. So you don't know if you can throw the fade route. You don't know if you should hit the post, which makes it harder because then it's like with the Patriots, we always talk about communication and these option routes. If, for example, your slot receiver, it's man coverage, it's the difference between middle of the field open, which means there's no safety in the middle of the field. That's, cover 2 when they're protecting the sidelines, or middle of the field closed, which is cover 1, cover 3, where there's a safety right in the middle like Devin McCourty, Earl Thomas, those guys. but your route changes sometimes. So if a receiver in the slot is supposed to run a post against an open middle of the field, and maybe a corner if they're trying to take away the middle, then he doesn't really know. The receiver has to know what to do, and the quarterback has to see it. And then where the inexperienced part comes in is if he's looking at the pressure and he can feel it in his eyes drop, he's not looking at the safeties. He doesn't know, what the coverage actually is, which is how they hold the ball. And more experienced quarterbacks, they know not to look down at the rush, and, it's easier for them. But even still, when the defense is playing soundly, they're still in good position. So there's so many things you have to think about. And the fact this defense has been together for so long and they communicate so well is a huge benefit to them, and the reason that they're able to have as much success as they're having, and why they're on a historic tear right now, and I don't see it slowing down. Because we've been seeing it for more than 7 weeks. We've been seeing it going all the way back to midseason last year. So
yeah, no, it's true. So, all right, listen, 5 words or less. Spags, I'm going to start with you. Do the Browns have a chance on Sunday?
No, absolutely not. It's the biggest coaching mismatch of all time. Bill Belichick versus Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens got hired because they were just like, hey, you want to coach? Like, go coach these guys. He is a buffoon. There's no way they're in the ballpark. I'm sold. Baker Mayfield, I'm way past 5 words. Go ahead, Taylor.
I was going to say, Taylor, Spags is a bad listener. 5 words or less to the Browns have a chance on Sunday.
The Browns are not good. Or the Browns have no chance. There we go.
Yeah,
there you go. All right, cool.
There's a little dash in there.
I was on.
You're a teacher. I can't cheat on your watch. I forgot.
Listen. You don't have to be a teacher to know you went over your 5-word max.
I know. I hope
not. No. So I was on actually an interesting podcast. Dogs of War is the name of the show, and it's really cool guys. And we're just chatting about that same thing about, whether they have a chance or not. And I just think the Browns have no shot. And Spags, you hit the nail on the head, man. The coaching matchup is not fair. And, someone asked on the chat, will they hold the Browns to less than 3 points? I don't know about that. I mean, the Browns might score a touchdown, maybe, possibly. But I mean,
I want an early.
Kareem Hunt's coming back. Kareem Hunt always scores against the Patriots. That's honestly what scares me the most.
Kareem Hunt's coming back this week? No, it can't be that. No, I think he's suspended 8 weeks.
8 games, right?
8 games. Okay. I thought I saw something about him. Okay.
So I think he's back at practice. Yeah,
practicing. That's it. My bad.
That's it. No, you're all right. It's okay.
So I want an early lead though. Kind of talking about that game
I agree.
a little bit. Preview it. Get up ahead. Just keep this thing rolling. And I mean, we know they have no chance. The Browns. They're like, oh, here we go. Like, oh shit, here we go again, type of thing. Don't give them any chance. Don't give them any hope that they could be in this game, because I mean they got some skill players like Jarvis and Odell. I'm interested to see Odell versus Gilmore. I think that's a pretty cool matchup.
Well, that's the one.
He's going to go to him. He's not going to shy away from.
No, he has to. He's got no choice.
We've seen plenty of other people, and Odell is the kind of guy where it doesn't matter who's against him. You give him an opportunity to make plays. Now, I think where the Patriots are going to have success is they're going to try to get him the ball quick, so screens and things like that. That doesn't work very well against tight man coverage. So, they can use some stack looks and some bunches to try to get, OBJ a little bit more space. But we've seen how good Stephon is at diagnosing plays and closing on, screens and getting in position to blow those up. So I don't really see Odell Beckham. He's going to have a couple catches. He's a superstar. Right. But I don't see him being a difference maker in this game. And then beyond that, Jarvis Landry is a great leader. I love his toughness. I love his passion for the game and everything he brings. But I also think he's pretty underrated. I don't know if he is now, maybe, considering how their whole season's going. But I don't think he's the kind of guy. He reminds me of Juju in that they have athletic limitations, but they're tough guys who will catch pretty much anything in their area code, and they're good after the catch. But if you put an athlete on them who plays good coverage and is sound fundamentally, they're not going to have a very good game. And I think that's the kind of thing we're going to see. Like John Jones, I think he's going to be able to out-physical Jones a little bit because he's a smaller guy. But still, Jones has excellent ball skills. He's sticky. I don't think he's going to give up much separation to Jarvis. So, again, another guy who they rely on who I don't think is going to be a big difference maker. Chubb is the really
he's the
person I'm worried about. And we saw Le'Veon Bell did have some good runs against the Patriots. But then, if you're talking about the run game, then you look at the O-line. Right.
Well,
and this O-line for the Browns is
bad.
I know. Danny Shelton, Lawrence Guy are going to be in the backfield all game.
But you know what, though? I think that's the only chance, and that's what I was saying on the show, on these guys' show yesterday, is that, that's the only shot they have of winning. You have to try to stack the box and run it every play. And, not every play, but I mean, you got to try to run it a lot and have success running. And if you can somehow do that, then you have a chance at least, because you're not throwing the ball on the Patriots. You're not going to do it. And so even OBJ, they may not go, as many cover zero, as they did this game, but realistically, you're not beating them. You're not beating them man to man. So it's not going to happen. So to me, to win the game or to have a chance of winning the game, they got to run a lot. And like you said, their offensive line is garbage, and the Patriots' defensive line is great. So they don't have a great chance of doing that either.
And then you also have to factor in Baker Mayfield's accuracy has not been good this season.
Geez.
He's putting it in the area code, but he's throwing behind. He's throwing in front.
Yeah.
And what did Darnold do the entire game? His accuracy was off. Now, there were some. I'm not going to act like he was, close a lot of the time. There were a couple of cases where he just literally lobbed it up there.
Yeah.
And, it was just an easy pick for the DBs. But at the same time, when you put it behind or in front and the Patriots are defending you, they're not giving up a lot of separation. We've seen it every single week. If you're not putting it right where the receiver can catch it, away from their body or right in their body so they can make a quick one, the Patriots are going to deflect it. They've all got excellent ball skills. They know, okay, I'm in phase. I can make a play on the ball, which is why they lead the league in interceptions, which I tweeted earlier this week, the fact that man coverage is designed basically for you to just stop passes. You're not trying to get interceptions really. You're really just trying to make sure the receiver doesn't catch it. The fact that they lead the league in interceptions and match the total from last year playing man coverage, you're not even looking at the ball a lot of the time, but it speaks to their athleticism and their ability to stay with the receiver in phase and give themselves opportunities to. But even when they're not, if they're a little behind, you see Gilmore's great at this. J.C. Jackson does a really good job. All of them do. If they're a little bit behind, they go for the ball, they punch it out, they rip it out. They're excellent at that. So I think there's just too many things that go against the Browns' offense. I think their defense is, something that I think is a more interesting matchup to look at, but I don't see their offense being able to move the ball consistently.
Yeah. And just to note, too, with a little good luck to Baker, the Patriots have played 4 top 10 picks in the last 2 years. Rosen, Allen, Jones, and Darnold. They're 46 for 109. That's 42%.
Yikes.
497 yards, a touchdown, 11 interceptions. I tweeted this out after the game.
11 interceptions?
First 4 top 10 picks, and then you get Baker Mayfield this week. So they're going to play 5 first-round picks of the last 2 years, and they've made the prior 4 look awful.
Really bad. Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Plus, Belichick could get his 100th win against the Browns. And we all know about that history. Yeah. That is too poetic. It has to happen.
And you know what they said?
His first career win against the Browns?
His first career win was with the Browns against the Patriots.
Yep.
Crazy. So, it's a double revenge game for Belichick. Belichick had the revenge game last week against the Jets, and he's got the revenge game this week against the Browns. So it's like a whole thing, So, all right, done with the Browns. That's enough of them. So this is our final segment. Listen, if you're out there, if you're watching, we appreciate you guys. Get your question in for the Q&A afterwards. But this is kind of our final segment of the show. We got to talk about it because Adam Schefter won't stop talking about it. He doubled down on it the other day. He thinks Brady's going to be gone after this year. He's going somewhere. Who the heck knows where they're going? I don't know. He thinks he's leaving to go. I don't know. I think it's stupid. But here's what I'll say. And I've been saying it since the beginning. And I got to give my father credit because he's the first one that said it, and I stole it from him. But he's not online, and he has no presence anywhere, and whatever. No one listens to him. So I'm the only one. I'm just going to steal it from now on. I gave him credit once. Now it's done. I don't think to give him credit again. But on Tom versus Time, he's sitting on the couch with Giselle, and they're talking about how much longer he's going to play. And he looks at Super G, and he says, he got a little smirk on his face, and he's like, 2 more. Okay? He's not talking about seasons. He's talking about Super Bowls. And in that situation, he had 5 at that point. That's the Eagles, obviously the Eagles season. They lose that year. They win last year. He's got 6. There's 1. So now if he wins this year, there's number 2. And to me, that's the only situation I could see Brady walking away if they win a 7th this year. If he gets 7, he's got more than Jordan. He's got more than Kobe. He's got more than any other NFL franchise, obviously, other than his own. So it's just the levels are ridiculous. And again, I think you're hearing more from him. Like today, I thought was interesting, on the Greg Hill show, on the Hillman show, when he said, I'm on borrowed time right now, and I could just wake up tomorrow and be like, meh, okay, I think I'm done. I was like, whoa, really? And so I think that, he's got it in his head a little bit more. If we win this year, that's the end and we're good. I'm fine with that. And so, Spags, I'll kind of let you go first on this, but your thoughts on, obviously his contract runs out after this year. He's got to sign with the Patriots. I don't think he goes anywhere else. You can speak on that, but I think if they win, there's a good chance that could be his last game.
I've said it too, Pat, and I agree with you 100% on that. And I've said it since the beginning. He's not a Derek Jeter, a David Ortiz type where he wants this big, ceremony, the gifts you get. I mean, not that they might not do it to that extent, but I don't. He's not the guy that people. He doesn't like people knowing his business. I think he's gonna, like you said, wake up one day and be like, I'm done. Kind of come out of nowhere, come out of left field. I completely agree with you with the Super Bowl take. And another thing is too, I don't think Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, or Tom Brady would allow himself to ever wear another uniform. I know the San Francisco thing was thrown out there, and I kind of believe that for a little bit because, Joe Montana played in another uniform and other great quarterbacks, but with Jimmy G there, there's just no way. And another thing to spice up the pot a little bit, if he goes and wins a 7th Super Bowl title versus Jimmy Garoppolo, he should just take his jersey off at midfield and end it right there. I would be completely okay with that. That would be awesome. But I do think you're right. If they do win it this year, I think this is it. We've seen some weird things from him, some weird comments. And I completely, I think he's kind of tired of the bull crap with the media and just, he's just lived in a magnifying glass his whole life. And I just think he's done with that. He's done his time. I'll respect his decision either way. He's brought all of us so much joy, and I'm shocked he's still playing and at the level he is. So I'm going to have to say, if they win it this year, this could be it.
Yeah, and I think, speculation to when exactly it's going to happen is pretty pointless because he said how many times when I suck, I'm going to stop. But at the same time, like you guys have said, that you could wake up one day and just be like, I'm not doing this anymore. If your heart's not in it, as much work as he puts in, like we know this is a year-round thing for him. This isn't, I get a couple months off. Like he's on vacation still, thinking about his sleep, thinking about what he's eating, all those things. So, yeah, I agree. If anything, it's going to be because he retires. He's not going anywhere else. And even with the Joe Montana situation, he had Steve Young breathing down his back. Right. You know what I mean? It wasn't a perfect situation when Joe Montana left. Right now, Brady's got an owner who's like a second father to him. Belichick, everyone loves to, dissect that relationship. Yeah, the rip that's going on. And people don't, I think, understand how much respect and professional love I think there is there because they teach each other so much. Like how many players do you think? Obviously, a good coach is going to learn from their players, because they see things that you don't, and the league's always evolving, so there's always going to be something to take away. But Belichick always mentions how Brady makes him a better coach because he keeps him on top of everything. He has to make sure that, when they have their little individual meetings, that there's not something that he overlooked that Brady's going to point out to him. Things that Brady's telling him about, the things that he's seeing. There's so much about that relationship and so much respect and history there. Like, do you really think that winning 6 Super Bowls with another person isn't, going to foster a little bit of a bond there?
Right.
There's just so many factors, I think, that overwhelm the whole he's selling his house. And isn't he getting a house in Connecticut? Like, it's not like he's moving to Texas or anything. Like, he's still going to be pretty close. So I think all that speculation is just, people love to find some little some weakness in the armor to say, the Patriots are going to come down finally. I think actually Rappaport tweeted something about the Patriots staff and how Steve Belichick's on it, Gerard Mayo's on it, and he said the future's looking bright for a long time. And I just said, weep, because that's the reality. There's good young players on the team, and again, to just wrap it all up, I feel with Brady the way I felt about Gronk, in that, I'm just going to cherish every moment that we have left with him. If he wants to retire, I'm more than happy. He's given this city and this Patriots community so much of himself, and to an extent his family, just because of the spotlight he's in. And there's so many things that he's done to sacrifice to be the best player he can be for himself, for his teammates, and for the fan base. So if he wants to retire, all the power to him. He's going to go out on top, I'm sure. But if like you guys said, if anything, I think he retires. I don't see him wearing another uniform.
Agreed. So listen, I mean, that's all we got. This has been a lot of fun, man. This has been a lot of fun. I think we've answered all the questions in the stream. So thank you for participating, people. Thanks for watching. It's been the first, and hopefully the first of many. And it's been a lot of fun. And Taylor, you were a little long-winded there. I'm just kidding.
That's my thing. It's ADHD. I get caught in my own head sometimes.
No, but you know what though? It's the X and O stuff is so cool because I see some of it, but man, you break it down. So you break it down like a coach, and it's great. And so you bring that to the table for Pat's Pulpit and for us, and we appreciate that. So we thought you'd be the perfect guy. So before you do that, actually, let's kind of plug yourself, Taylor, a little bit, where they can see you and whatnot, and then Spags and I guess we'll talk for a second, although people should know who we are already. I mean, we'll see. But.
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Twitter at TKYLES39, TKyles39. And I'm also a co-host with Bobby Kravitsky on the Kravitsky and Kyle show. We do that every Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll be dropping an episode tomorrow, so you guys can tune in for that. And I love constructive criticism, by the way. I do this for the people that are watching all these threads and all the X's and O's stuff I put out, because I want to try to bring the game to someone else and, impart any, what little knowledge I have. I'm very young in this game. But if you guys have any constructive criticism on Twitter or anything that you want to let me my way, how I can be better, with how I break things down, or on the podcast appearances or anything like that, please let me know. And I really appreciate all the support, and I love being on the show with you guys. Thank you for having me.
That was great.
Anytime,
we're happy to have you.
We gotta make this more. We gotta do this more.
For sure.
Agree.
For sure.
We do have a question that said, will it be every Wednesday? It's a great question. We can't promise every Wednesday because our schedule, Spags and I's schedule fluctuates from time to time. But I'd love to try to do, if we could do a live show every week, that'd be great. Now, of course, it's going to depend on the guest. Sometimes we'll have a guest that can't do a live show, maybe call in guests only or something like that. So there's a possibility there. But we could do, even if, I think I'd like to. I know. I'd love to set up something more consistent where we're doing it, once a week, and hopefully, my hope is that every show starts doing some live content, and all of us start doing live content at Pat's Pulpit. So and kind of get this YouTube page up and going. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So listen, for me, I'm at plane_Pats online, and I write, occasionally I'll write an article or two here and there as well. And we're what Pat's Nation Pod? No.
Yep.
Pat's Nation Pod, right? So on Twitter, and Spags, I'll let you shout yourself out before I talk for you.
I'm at Ryan_Spags. I'm the stat guy, I guess you could say. I love digging up Football Reference. It's my best friend on the internet.
Oh, it's the best, isn't it?
I'm the stat guy. I'm learning the X's and O's a little bit, Taylor. I gotta give you a shout out. I'm learning through you. I guess that's kind of the best way to go. Doing a little film breakdown, but like he said, constructive criticism, trying to get better at this, and I interact with just about everybody. So you guys can tune in there, and we'll go from there. For
sure, and if you're on, if you're listening on the podcast right now, because this is getting released on Friday as well in podcast form. So if you're listening on the podcast right now, you can certainly tune in to the YouTube page as well and check us out. And so we'll be tweeting those links out as well. So listen, thanks for listening, Taylor, Ryan. It's been a pleasure, guys, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Take care.
See you guys later. Awesome.